So as a lot of us are still dealing with the coronavirus and, now the country is slowly opening back up, and which is a good thing in a lot of instances. But the school year for all the kids is just done. I mean, a lot of the governors say, nope, we're going to go ahead on and get it started, next school year. We'll go from there. But our kids, at least since the month of March, have been inside and they are doing virtual classes. And just as much as, we're doing it as parents here, people like Halle Berry, which we're going to talk about here, she's talking about having to basically homeschool her children, and she's never did anything like that before. Now, she has two children by the name of Nala, which I remember she had her. She's 12 now. And her other child, Maceo, Robert Martinez, 6 years old. She's been working with them. She said practically it's been hard, especially for her younger child at 6 years old, to sit through a virtual classroom because he doesn't have any examples of his classmates doing the same thing. She said it's a nightmare for me. She said it's a nightmare. He said this is like a wash of a semester. She also continued to say they're really not learning anything, and it's hard to have a 6-year-old. And what I learned is that when 6-year-olds see other 6-year-olds doing things, then they tend to do it. Say like they sit and eat because there's 25 other ones doing it as well. He said stay in their desk and color because 25 other ones are doing it. So, her little child's moving around. She said at home, there are not 25 other ones doing it. He said, so to get him to focus and realize they're at home, but yet at their schools, it's really been a challenge. He said, but I enjoyed having extra time with them. He said, we've been making good use of the time. He said, when they're not in school, he said, when I'm not cracking the whip for school, she said, we have to do a lot of family time, story time, bonding time that we don't often get to have. So I can relate to Halle Berry on that. I have a 5-year-old, and one day I was sitting there with her, and she had a teacher on the laptop and everything, and the teacher was doing what she had to do, and my little girl, she was just moving and different things because in school they don't really do that. They, like I said, they have their classmates, they doing their thing. And it's definitely been a challenge on a lot of parents to, basically start teaching our children ourselves. And I bet you this, when school gets started back up, parents really going to celebrate Teacher Appreciation Day probably more than any other time ever, because you really get to see what teachers go through to deal with children and learning. See, as parents, we just drop our kids off, whether they go to public school or private school, and we don't have to deal with them. And a lot of people are so used to just dropping their kids off. Some of them don't even know what their children actually be doing too much because they used to just not dealing with them like that in that manner. But it's good. They have been home in a lot of ways that, they can, take a little break. But, sometimes I'm even saying, hey, will the school year be a complete wash? Because see, my daughter's school will go all the way into the end of June. It's when they're out, then they get to do, if they choose to, like the parents, of course, if you wanted to put your child in school for 3 weeks in July, you can do that. And then the month of August is out, and then they will start back again in September. So I'm hoping that my little girl can go back to school in June. I'm hoping they can do it, since they're just over a different, set of rules. I mean, still got to follow state guidelines, so they have a different school calendar than public school. But other celebrities like Taraji P. Henson, she's been talking about how she had to homeschool her kids. So listen, it's all of us that's doing a lot of homeschooling. But the great thing about it, I believe as well, is that it's just certain things in school that I didn't like. Of course, Halle Berry's children is not going to deal with what some of our children deal with in public school, with how some of the teachers are acting or the police that's in the school, beating up and roughing up the kids. That's some things I'm actually glad that we not seeing because they're at home right now. But, shout out to all the parents that's dealing with your children right now. A lot of graduations going to be happening. Some people decide to, do it virtually. I know my daughter's graduating, and they're going to do it actually at the Texans Stadium when they had a graduation. So at least they're having a graduation. I was concerned that they wasn't going to have it. But let me know in the comments how you faring with, your child or children with virtual learning. And, I kind of heard that this may be actually added next year as well. That, sometimes your children would be school some days and some days would be at home virtual learning.